望する方が多いんです。
We still have no plans for a Japanese voice option, but that's still been a really big request, or we have received a lot of questions about that, so definitely consider it for the future. But I'd like to point out that the English voice cast is really great too, so I'm sure players will be happy with what they hear.
Do be careful with those. For every task, there's a perfect tool.
And of course, the PS3, the Blu-ray disc has a lot of space in it, and there's capacity for it. But for Final Fantasy XIII, the movies take up a lot of room on the disc. And also, we didn't really want there to be any difference between the 360 and the PS3 versions at all. So I wanted to make sure it was kept equal, and that's why we decided to go with this option. The 360 version and the PS3 version really don't have any differences, and when we first announced that Final Fantasy XIII was going to go multi-platform, we already had a PS3 version that was on its way to completion, and we took that exact game and just transported it to the 360 version. So there was nothing that affected the PS3 version really in developing the 360 version, if that makes any sense.
安心しろ。バルスに追放なんてさせない。俺らがどうにかするから。俺たちも手伝うぞ。だ。このまま黙ってられるか。
So the decision to take out the Japanese voice option was not so much a result of seeing the differences between the hardware, but really the mission for the team for Final Fantasy XIII was to bring it out to a worldwide audience as soon as possible. Usually there's a gap between the Japanese release and the US and European releases. It can go up from 6 months to a year, but for Final Fantasy XIII, that gap is really going to be shortened, and in trying to decide what they could do to decrease that gap as much as possible, dropping the language option was one of the things that they decided to cut. Because there's a lot of, once they decide to include multiple language tracks, then there's a lot of testing that they have to go through that might delay, and just for the greater good in their eyes, for this title in particular.
ルシの使命っつうのはああしろこうしろって。
まあギャップもそうなんですけど、当然その。
I thought it would be really important to have that English language option, since especially when thinking about players of a younger age range, following subtitles while trying to keep up with the game as well is not necessarily easy. Like Tatsu-san was bringing up an example of when he goes to see movies in Japan. Of course, when he goes by himself and he sees foreign movies, he watches them with the subtitles so that he can enjoy whatever foreign language is being spoken. But when he goes with his family, since he has younger children, he always goes for the dubbed movies, and looking at trying to make the game as available to a wide range of audience as possible. Wanted to definitely include that English language option, and the format that we have the game coming together in right now is we feel is probably the best option, considering the production cost and sales and all those aspects that go into putting the game together. So it's a great option that we have right now.
なので今みたいな形になってます。そうですね。まだ正式に決定していることはない。
The Japanese trial version came as a disc, as you know, and for an overseas audience, we're really looking into downloadable trial demo options. So there's nothing confirmed yet, but that's the direction we're heading in.
敵は国軍政府。しかも恐怖の最高だ。
何が恐怖よ。私らノラの敵じゃないよ。
Well, in the future, we'd obviously like to make the game available at once, simultaneously worldwide. But for this game in particular, we're thinking it shouldn't be more than one season worth of a gap. So we're bringing it to Japan in the winter, and then overseas in Europe and North America, it should be available in the spring. We're aiming for around 3 discs for the Xbox 360. The team is working really hard to compress everything as much as possible while still keeping the quality, so that the contents of the 360 version and the PS3 version are very similar, pretty much on par. We are thinking of providing it in a downloadable format for overseas, but the content of it wouldn't be a direct port of what was released in Japan, since that demo was mastered about a year ago already. So the game content is come pretty far since then, and there's been a lot of updates. So if we were to provide a demo for overseas, it would be a completely new version.
What? Lightning.